Kia ora everyone, I'm Louise and I work in the All of Government Travel Team at ND. And today we're speaking with Drew from EECA, who's going to share with us a little bit about how they utilise the less than 1 day rental vehicle rentals in their travel program. Hi Drew.
Morning, afternoon, Louise.
So thank you so much for your time today. Just wondering, to start us off, could you share with us what the main motivation was behind EECA's less than 1 day rentals initiative?
Yes, no problem. It was quite simple. It made a lot of sense to EECA to head into the less than 1 day rental due to our low emissions target we set. So back in 2007, we set a benchmark to reduce our carbon emissions, and since then we've reduced it by a third. And we've since certified using carbon zero by Toitu. But part of that made us focus on our travel, and we created guidelines and to choose the lowest emissions vehicle fleet available, and less than 1 day rental has this option. In the Auckland office, for example, we're pretty close to 100% utilisation of electric vehicles through LTODR, and in Wellington we're not too far behind either.
Oh, wow. So kind of how did you implement it into your travel program? What were those first few steps that you had to take as an organisation?
We're actually quite lucky at EECA because we're a small agency, and that enabled us just to get on and do it. It's sort of within our mandate of an agency of what we can and can't do. And because we're relatively small and agile, that just made it quite easy. So it wasn't a big transition whatsoever. It was quite easy. We just informed a few people and then rolled it out within the organisation.
Okay, cool. And when it comes to actually booking a rental vehicle through the less than 1 day rentals contract, it's a little bit different from a sort of traditional taxi or hire car. And yeah, could you maybe explain the booking process for us?
It's actually quite simple now that everyone's confident and familiar with booking airlines or holidays online. It's no different than that. You just have to set up an account with the car share scheme to start with. And EECA's got a couple of owner accounts, and then what we have to do is get individual drivers added to those accounts. So the very first thing you do is just make sure you've got a driver's license that you can add to it. They add you to the account, and when you get added to an account, generally most of the organisations send out a swipe card. And what that swipe card is, it enables you to access the car when you booked it. So on the windscreen, there's a little toggle. You just put the swipe card in front of the toggle, it unlocks the door. And then once you're in the car, you've got access to the key for the car. And if you're using a petrol car, it's also got fuel cards in case it's low on petrol. But in order to book the car, once you're set up, all you need to do is you just go on the internet site, you have a look around all the cars that are within your area. For me, for example, I've got about 6 cars within 300 odd metres to choose from. And you just have to choose one that's available for the time frame you need. And you can book it, that day, half an hour before, or you can look at a week or two in advance as well. So there's plenty of options there. The only thing I try to do is when I'm booking it is make sure I'm not booking one that's due back at the same time. So if I want one at 11 o'clock in the morning, I make sure that it's been there for at least an hour before, just in case someone's running late. But it's relatively user-friendly.
Wow, okay. So almost just like booking a meeting room within your organisation. Yep.
Like anything on the internet, pretty simple these days.
Oh.
You just got to remember your password and username like everyone else.
And with those swipe cards that you were talking about, do you have just a few for the entire organisation, or does each individual staff member get their own swipe card?
We do have a pool of swipe cards. So for our office in Auckland, I think we might have about 4 or 5. And there's a couple of us which will have a one that they keep on at all times. But yeah, generally a pool of them if you don't use them very often.
Cool. And how do you kind of currently manage the less than 1 day rentals service? Do you have someone internally who is the sort of administration person, or is it just kind of done on an ad hoc basis?
Once again, due to the size of EECA, it's more of an ad hoc basis. It's a bit of a piecemeal exercise. We don't have a fleet manager or real admin people to be able to manage this for us. But we just have accounts out there, and then we give instructions about how to use the different accounts, whether it's CityHop or Mevo, for example. And then we put all the information and guidance up on the intranet, so anyone who's starting can get access to the guidance. But in the Auckland office, for example, all we do is if someone new starts, I just show them the ropes and I show them how to do it online. I take them to cars and show them how to get in the cars and how to use the service. So I guess that's just being small and agile. You're a little bit easier to make that.
But equally, good to hear that you've just included that into your kind of onboarding protocol, which, I think regardless of your agency size is something that's an option.
Yeah.
And just you touched on it earlier, but just going back to sort of perhaps some challenges around the less than one day rental vehicles service. I know one thing that people find a bit difficult is adjusting to that, having to book a car that's sort of within an area that they are within the range. Is there any kind of anxiety around a car being available when you need it? Have you had that at all from staff, or?
We're based in the CBD in both Auckland and Wellington and Christchurch, so we don't really have that anxiety. They're quite big in the CBDs around the larger regional areas. If you're out in the suburbs, you may have a little bit more anxiety around that sort of things. But I can say I've got less anxiety of booking a car to get to a meeting in Manukau, for example, than what I do trying to make sure I've got an Uber to get back in the time that I need. So I have a lot less anxiety about that or waiting for a taxi at the other end. So yeah, it's relatively simple. And the reason for that is it's all visual on the website. So you can see what cars are available, when they're available, and they've always been good and available when I've needed it. So it hasn't been hard at all.
Great. So you've got that real-time information there at your fingertips, really.
Yeah.
Right. And just wondering about cost-wise, how has using the less than one day rentals option sort of affected your spend on taxis and hire cars? Do you know at all, or potentially even fleet?
It's a little bit hard in overall budget to decipher if we've improved or not, but ultimately EECA is trying to minimise travel costs overall, and we have found less than one day rentals helps that. When I've done a little bit further investigation, I think there's a sweet spot for any type of vehicle, and I think people have just got to use their common sense for that as well. So for me personally, if it's a short trip and an hour-long meeting, I do find either riding a bike, walking, catching a train, catching a bus, catching a taxi, catching an Uber is the preferred option. If I'm going long distances, perhaps I will look for rental cars, although less than one day rentals do hire them out for more than 24 hours. But my sweet spot is, if I've got a meeting half an hour away from the work, I'm only got an hour or two, so in total I'm going to be gone maybe 3-4 hours. I find that's a sweet spot where I find I use it all the time. And the reason why it's cost competitive is if I rent a car, I've got to walk 15 minutes, 20 minutes to the car rental place. I've got to sign the car in. I've got to sign it back out. I've got to fill it up with petrol. And all that waste of time of me walking around doing all that stuff I don't need to do is where you save money by using the less than one day rental.
Absolutely. And beyond kind of what you've just spoken about there and also the emissions saving of using a less than one day rental car, are there any other benefits that you've seen?
The shared economy is a new way of living and working. So having a car share is one aspect that EECA's embraced. We don't provide company cars or fleet vehicles. So car share is ideal for the staff and our travel requirements. One thing that I've really found valuable is the ability to get access to these vehicles at any time of day. When I rent a vehicle, I quite often struggle to get back to the office by 4:30 in the afternoon or 8 o'clock in the morning to meet some of these meeting requirements that you need for a rental car. So quite often I have to pick it up the day before or drop it off the day after. Less than one day rentals enables you to pick it up and drop it off any time of the day or night. So I've found that part just quite easy to use and being quite valuable in some instances.
Oh, great. And just kind of thinking about other agencies who might be looking to follow in what EECA is doing, is there any advice you'd give to government agencies who are looking to increase their own use of less than one day rentals?
I'd just say just do it. You get a couple of people who are to trial and test the cars. So get people who are more engaged in that sort of shared economy, and it'll work out quite well. You'll find it's actually really easy, really beneficial once you get started. So it's just about learning the process. It's not scary. There's no anxiety that we've found, and it's actually pretty easy in the end of the day. So just try it. One thing that I find it really valuable at EECA is quite often when people start, they might not have driven electric vehicles, etc. So it's actually a good way to show someone what an electric vehicle is and what it can do, and just share your experience and knowledge with others. And same at the other end, when you're at meetings of user vehicles, of hey, this is how we do it, and people quite often comment of, oh, that's a great little idea, why don't we do it? So just get out there and try it would be the main words I'd come back with.
Great. Oh, well, thank you so much for talking to us today, Drew. And it sounds like EECA are doing really well in this space. If your agency would like to implement less than 1 day rentals into your travel program, there are videos on the NZGPP website about how they work and the full contact details for the 3 suppliers on the panel who operate in Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch. Cool. Thanks, Drew.
Thanks, Louise.